Beyond the Mic with Sean Dillon.
We're joined on the BeyondTheMic.com star line by a comedian and actor. You can see him Thursday nights in Tommy on CBS. Vladimir Caamaño. Laughing Vlad, welcome, brother.
Thank you, my man. A pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate it.
Let's go beyond the mic. You have a degree in psychology from Wesleyan University. How has being observant around the Bronx helped develop your stand-up?
So, coming from the Bronx, it's a hotbed of different voices and narratives. Being from New York and the subway system, it's almost like being on a radio station and you're being bombarded with a million different types of records. Your brain is just a pot, it's a stew of different seasonings, inspirations. So that's kind of what's gone into my stand-up and also my writing and my acting. I pull from those experiences and they give me confidence. My father is a superintendent in the Bronx for a 68-unit building, and I saw him firsthand working, plumbing, piping, painting. So when you see somebody going through that day in and day out, it gives you the confidence to pursue an industry where you have to deal with a lot of rejection. The Bronx in itself, the Yankees, the concrete streets, the small and tight fire hydrants, it's built to deal with rejection, to keep pressing on.
As a person born near Queens, I totally understand.
Hey, what's up, buddy? You're a Mets fan?
Growing up, I was a Mets fan.
Oh, man.
Don't hold that against me. Some people do.
It's all good, my man. Nothing but love. I'm funny. My father's from the Bronx. He roots for any team playing against the Yankees. Because many moons ago, when they had Don Mattingly, when they had Reggie Jackson, they were a scrappy team. And then they became, the Derek Jeter and the Alex Rodriguez and the Aaron Judge, which is all fine and good, but the team has a lot more glitter now. It has a lot more, shine.
Who was your favorite baseball player growing up?
It has to be Kirby Puckett. Kirby Puckett was if you remember, he was a chubby guy, but he played like he had the body of a gymnast. He was agile. He was a contradiction in many ways. I was a chubby kid growing up, and his name Kirby. Kirby, if you remember, was a Nintendo character. It was a little fluff ball, and Kirby, the name matched. It was a
little pink ball.
Exactly. And Kirby fought that stereotype. He was like, "Listen, man, I know it portly, but I'm going to play like I'm otherwise."
You were able to cover the World Baseball Classic and the Dominican Republic team in 2017.
Yes, I did. How
important is baseball to you? And if you had the opportunity, would you do it again in 2021?
Yeah, I would definitely do it. Go down there again. And I love talking to the fans and for many developing countries. I would say this. For many people coming out of, tough economic circumstances, you look at boxing, for example. Boxing is littered with Roberto Duran and even Floyd Mayweather, guys that came out of just tough economic strains. You see the same about basketball. That's what baseball is for the Dominican Republic. It's a lifeline for a lot of people. It's an economic opportunity. And the climate in our country lends itself to that. It's a tropical country, so we have tons of land. It's a very simple sport. A glove, a bat, and a baseball. Unlike basketball is a little harder. You need a hoop. You need a certain height. You need the lines on the ground. When I went to go visit my family, when I would go, sometimes we would take a broomstick and we would take the top of a water bottle and we would use that to play baseball.
Good old stickball.
Good old stickball, exactly. Which you can find in the Bronx, back in the day. The geography and the simplicity of the sport and just makes it very easy for us to play it.
Now, one of your favorite topics is your family. When your parents first saw you doing stand-up, were they mad, angry, or did Dad go like, "I don't do that"?
The first thing that they noticed was, so growing up, even now, I'm an introvert. I do enjoy, the life of the mind. I like reflecting. I like going on walks. So my parents, they were in shock when they first saw me doing stand-up. They were like, how, when? And I think for me, my dad was a huge Rodney Dangerfield fan, and my older brother was an Eddie Murphy fan, and my mother used to love watching sketches on Spanish television. And because I struggled a bit socially, I kind of picked up on the fact that, hey, these people like to laugh. Maybe that's my entry point to communicate with them, to build a relationship with them. So I just absorbed, I would go out, I'd buy the Steve Martin albums, I'd buy the Richard Pryor albums. I would sneak in and I would watch like Rodney Dangerfield movies, like when my dad was in earshot, as a way to get him to come and watch the movies with me. So the first thing was shock. The second thing they experienced was my recollection of things. My father was shocked. I do a joke about how my father used to be obsessed with black garbage bags. That was his Swiss Army knife. If you needed a raincoat, If you needed a curtain, black garbage bag,
Tinted windows.
It's in the windows, exactly, which I would love for you to share with your listeners. I did a set on the Howie Mandel Gala for the Just for Laughs Festival, and I did that joke on there. My father was shocked that I would just bring all those stories back. He was like, my God, you remember that. They'd come to see me again and again, and it'd be different stories. It'd be conversations my father had with the tenants, or it'd be something my mother did or something my brother did. And they were just shocked at all those years that I was an introvert and I was quiet.
That's all it was. You were listening.
I was quietly collecting stories. I was collecting narratives. Fast forward in 2015, I ended up selling a pilot to NBC that I wrote and shot. It was just my knack for storytelling. It was just all those years of kind of keeping to myself and just watching my father work and my brother, the salsa dancer, watch him dance. My mother was a house mom, so I'd watch her cook. And my mother was always on the phone. She was always on the phone, And the whole time she's on the phone, she would talk about, who's doing what, who's cheating on who owes who money. And the whole time I'm listening, I'm like, oh, this is how people operate. Okay, so she wants that, so she's going to do this to get that. Obviously this is all in hindsight. And in talking to you, I'm always amazed at kind of the points of learning that accumulate over time.
Were you treated any differently when people found out that you were the Supers kid?
In some ways, you do get certain privileges. For example, if a police officer pulls you over, all I had to say was, hey, my father, Super. Oh, they would go, oh, your father's the Super of that building? They'd know him by name, and it was an easy out. It was almost like a get-out-of-jail card. If I had to get something at the bodega, and I happened to be short on money, I would go, hey, my dad's a Super. Oh, forget about it. Here, take the soda, take the eggs. Don't worry about it. So my father was kind of like the mayor, and it was funny because on Sundays, when my father's, those were my dad's day off, and on Sunday he would dress up in a suit, and he'd go around the neighborhood and say hi to people, and they would say, hey, Super, can you fix my apartment? And he would go, hey, it's Sunday, I got my suit on, you got to make an appointment, Total character, man, total character. He put on a three-piece suit, and he paraded the neighborhood. On the flip side, though, my dad is in charge. He was of a 68-unit building. And it's hard to maintain that many tenants and keep them all happy. So sometimes I had to, sneak around the tenants because if they saw me, they would kind of use me to get to my dad. Hey, man, I got a leak for 2 days now. Can you talk to your father? Meanwhile, in some ways, I was what you would call the communications director for the building. In the same way that, a government has a press secretary, I was a press secretary for my father because I knew what he was dealing with. If he had a paint job in apartment 4K, if he had a busted block in apartment 2J, but now I got 3F, haggling me about fixing his sink. So that, now that I talk to you, maybe that trained me because I had to find diplomatic ways and to kind of massage, angry tenants. It's funny that just kind of came up to me. Yeah, maybe that's one of my skill sets. I had to deal with irate apartment dwellers to get them to not, come hunting after my dad.
As we all deal with coronavirus, you've made it your mission online to get the word out about people working on vaccines. You didn't have to, but you did. Why?
So, I was a chemistry major in college from the first 3 years. I was a nerd in high school. I was also a huge chemistry. In fact, my chemistry teacher in high school, his name was Joshua Pepe, he guided me towards Wesleyan, and he actually wrote me a glowing recommendation. He was my chemistry teacher, and then I went to college, and I started off as a chemistry major, but then I switched course because I thought psychology was a better fit. So I've always had an affinity for science. I love Neil deGrasse Tyson. I love watching the show Cosmos. When this whole pandemic thing came out, I was like, who can I take an interest in? There's a scientist that I saw on the documentary Pandemic on Netflix. His name is Jake Glanville, and he's working on an antibody vaccine that shows amazing promise. And he's actually a Gates recipient, and I'm happy you asked me that because I'd love you to plug him as well if you would be so kind.
Definitely.
Because a vaccine is basically 18 months out, so that's what the experts are saying. And what Jacob is working on, he's working on an antibody treatment that's an offshoot from the previous SARS virus. He's using his research, and he came up with an antibody for the COVID-19 virus. But because he's a good scientist, he needs to get the proper testing and make it legitimate. So he's looking for avenues to do that. And he's been on all kinds of interviews. From my Instagram page, you can get access to his Instagram, his Twitter. And he's looking for ways to ramp up his treatment and testing. And his antibody treatment, if all goes well, he says he can have it, as early as September. It's an antibody treatment. So, according to, again, I'm not speaking for him. I'm a fan of his. It's not like we're friends, but I do support his research and the protocol that he's pursuing.
Your work with Edie Falco and Tommy feels like a mother-son relationship. You give her sass, she sends you to your room. How's it to work with her?
I'm a stand-up comic. I have a few things in my resume. I've sold a script. I've done a few bit parts, but Edie is, she is a legend, and she is just so kind. She's a team player, and she has an amazing sense of humor. Offset, it just feels like you're talking to a friend. That's what it feels. The days where we're sitting in the car and we're waiting for the cameras to set up, and we're just talking, and we laugh and we joke. One of the things we both love is we love watching funny animal videos. Edie is she's a huge animal support. She loves animal rights. So what we do is we share funny videos about dogs doing crazy things or stuff like that, and we just get a huge kick out of that, man. Like, we'll be in the car and she'll be like, "Hey, did you see this pit bull? He sits on the couch like an actual person."
3 hours later, you're like, "Hey, are you ready to shoot?"
Exactly. But she's so ordinary that she becomes extraordinary. That's the best way I can describe her, and I'm grateful every day to work with her. And I just, I'm fingers crossed that we get picked up for a second season, and I'm able to continue that journey with her.
You believe in giving back. You've worked with the Cedars-Sinai Psychological Trauma Center with children. How's that changed your life?
That was a fundraiser that I did, and it was kind of serendipitous. If you backtrack in my life, when I was in high school, I was in a program. I was in an after-school enrichment program called Liberty Partnerships Program. And that program was instrumental in getting me to go to college. So when I graduated from college, I ended up working at a version of that program for about 7 years. And I was a counselor. I was an after-school coordinator. And I was helping kids get into higher education. I'm a product of a lot of help. When that opportunity came around with Cedars-Sinai, it was a fundraising opportunity, and they were looking for a host to raise some money for initiatives they do to help young people in the Los Angeles area. And I was like, "Hey, let's do it. Hopefully we can do it again." It was a great opportunity. I love it when my comedy overlaps with helping out young people.
If you could give a percentage, how much of your character on Tommy, Abner Diaz, is you, and how much of you is in Abner Diaz?
So I would say this. I would break it up into 3 segments. Abner Diaz loves suits. I like a good fleece. I like gym pants and some hiking shoes. Abner drives. He likes to drive. I'm from New York City, man. I like the subway, and I like to walk. The one thing he and I share is our sense of humor. And that's the one thing that he and I definitely, when I read the script and I look at the jokes they do for him, I'm like, hey, that's something I find funny. But it's ironic, man. It's really ironic that I end up landing a role where I wear beautiful suits and I drive all the time, because in those two aspects, I'm the complete opposite.
Now, before the pandemic started, you were on the road, and there's always great stories from on the road. What's your funniest story from being a comedian on the road?
So I would say maybe 2 years into comedy, I end up booking a gig at a bar and grill in Westchester, and it's a paid gig. When you start comedy, the idea of getting paid to tell jokes is a complete, it blows your mind. It could be as little as $5. It could be as, $20, but you're just amazed. So I get this gig in Westchester. I think it was $50 or $100. And I get there to the bar and grill. And I'm so excited about the gig that I completely forget that it's the same night as the World Series. The Yankees are in the World Series. The venue has the audacity to play the game while I'm on stage.
Oh, gosh, no one's paying attention.
And it must have been about maybe so the bar was split into 2 rooms. They had the main room, which was the restaurant and the bar. Then they had a side room where they had a pool table, some chairs, and they had a small sidebar, and they had the TV and they had a stage. So there must have been about maybe, 6.5 people there. And I say 6.5 because I'm hoping that a ghost hopefully, went in there to help us out. And I'm doing my set, man, and I'm just taking a hot one. It is complete silence. The Yankee game is on, and I'm trying to figure these jokes out. And then midway through my set, this woman who's sitting with her friend, and she has one of those big wide martini glasses. I'm trying to figure out what you call them. She goes, "Hey, I saw Chris Rock when he sucked too." In a funny way, I took it as a compliment. I saw the humor in it.
Okay, I had an interview once with Michelle Rubini, band leader for Sonny and Cher, part of the famous Hollywood Wrecking Crew. 45 minutes in of stories about Sinatra, Sonny and Cher. Finish it up. There's a problem with the mic, and nothing from his side recorded.
Oh, man.
He's telling stories that need to be recorded for posterity. I'm going to swallow my pride, call him back and say, hey, everything that we recorded, it's gone. Nothing but polite.
What a
45
gentleman.
more minutes of him telling the greatest stories from the greatest generation of music.
What a gentleman. That's hilarious, by the way.
It was hilarious after he agreed to re-record.
It reminds me back in the day when you were writing a Word document and it completely escapes you to hit, Control Save, Control S.
And then you look at yourself and go, where do you all go?
Exactly.
You once talked to Santa and, quote, he said, what do you want for Christmas? And you said, justice, more jobs, and social equity. He said, try again. What are you asking for now?
Now, it's funny, man. Like now I'm asking health for my friends, my family, health for my friends' family and their friends. As a comedian, the lifeblood as a comedian is a live audience. It's people tightly packed into a club, and that is in danger right now. Social distancing is in place. So I think what I want more than anything is vaccine and treatment for this virus so that we can all get back to being together, that we can all share meals together. I mean, the idea that a restaurant is like peak living for human beings. To sit down at a restaurant, enjoy a meal, have some dessert, to say hi to the chef, to go to a comedy club, to go to a Broadway play, to get on a plane. It's just what I wish more than anything is just for a treatment, a fast treatment for this disease, man, because it's affecting us in so many different ways. It's a tragedy, man.
Time's running out, so it's time for the Rockin' 8 first answer that comes to your mind. No pressure. How long is a typical hike for you?
Well, I live in New York, so I'm mostly going on walks. So typically, sometimes I go out 30 minutes to an hour and a half. If I am out in a place where I can hike, I've grown to like it. Many, many moons ago, I climbed Mount Washington, and I was exhausted when I got to the top, and I took a van on the way back down. I took a nice, comfortable van. About an hour and a half when I'm in the city. I try to go on a walk at least a couple times a week. Otherwise, if I'm out in the wilderness, if I have a guide, I'm also a city kid. So if I'm out in the wilderness, I want a guide. I want someone there to let me know where it's safe to eat and find shelter.
Sunday lunch? What's on the table?
Sunday lunch. I'm a huge fan of pancakes. I love pancakes. I love oatmeal. So I can do breakfast for lunch. And typically, I'm a comedian, so I stay out late. So I'll get up 11 or noon, and I'll make some nice oatmeal or some pancakes or some. If we go out, I love Eggs Benedict.
Now, where do you write most of your stand-up?
I write most of my stand-up in my head. It's all in my head, man. Obviously, I take notes and stuff. But if I'm on the subway, if I'm in the shower, if I'm talking to a friend, as I'm talking to a friend, I'll be putting together a bit on something, a conversation, a show I watched. 90% of the time it's in my head. My dad will say something or my mother will say something that triggers a memory and I go, oh, okay.
What acting role of yours is your most favorite?
The easy answer is Tommy because it's my first series regular role. But I think my favorite acting role was in 2016 when I shot my pilot for NBC that I wrote with Bill Lawrence, and I played the lead of the show, and the show was about my life, and it was about my dad and I in the Bronx running a building. If I'm so blessed, I'll be able to do it again.
How about your favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday? That's a good question, man. Favorite holiday? Wow, that's a good one. Yikes. Favorite holiday? Labor Day?
As long as you didn't say Arbor Day, we'd be fine.
Yeah, Labor Day, right? Honor the workers and people that work. Those are the people that come see me at clubs. So I would say Labor Day. It's also a long weekend, and that's always good for a comedian.
Favorite place to get away from it all?
I love. It sounds weird, but there's parts of Los Angeles, man. I lived in LA for a few years, and there's parts of Los Angeles where you can get away, like Hermosa Beach. I go to Palos Verdes. There's little pockets of Los Angeles where you can really kind of sneak out. I also love San Francisco. I guess I would say California.
Now, favorite music that you listen to. Now, I know you were washing your hands the other day to the Wu-Tang Clan.
The Wu-Tang Clan. Lately, it's been, I gotta go with my main man, Miles Davis. To this day, kind of blue. I just recently watched there's a documentary on Netflix about Miles Davis. He has demons like all of us, but to me, kind of blue. It's just a beautiful, beautiful piece of work.
What's one thing that people don't know about you?
In high school, I used to be a magician.
Really?
I was into sleight of hand and card tricks. Yeah, I was huge into Magic. Lance Burton, David Blaine. It's nuts. Which is why one of my favorite clubs in Los Angeles is a club in Los Angeles called the Comedy and Magic Club. And on the weekends, they would have 9 comics and 1 magician. I would work there on Fridays and Saturdays, and I would always sneak into the showroom to watch the magician work. I lived not too far. When I was in LA, I lived not too far from the Magic Castle. I definitely paid a visit to that place. It's an amazing. I love magic. I do enjoy it.
He was a chemistry nerd in high school, communications director for his dad, the Super, and loves Miles Davis. You can see him on CBS Thursday nights in Tommy. Our friend, Vladimir Caamaño. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for your time, and I hope you stay healthy, safe and healthy.
And that, my friends, is Beyond the Mic.
Was it recording?